Strauss and Company are incredibly privileged to be able to offer the Della and Peter Jerling blue and white Kraak collection at auction this year. And I have the great joy of chatting to Deon, their precious son, who's going to tell us a little bit about them and their wonderful relationship and when they met.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yes, it goes back to the finding of some blue and white shards on the beach in Plettenberg Bay in an excavation where my uncle was building his new home. That started off the collection. Mum and Dad's passion for collecting really, I think, started when Dad, as a youngster, was working in Iran or Persia in those days, the late 50s, 60s, on the Trans-Iranian oil pipeline. He met Mum in London and took Mum across to Iran, where they had the expat kind of lifestyle, and the Middle East just sparked a passion for collection of all sorts, and you know, that led ultimately to this wonderful collection that was built up over a period of 30 years. And what's nice is that the family were involved. We were very young at the time. My brother Andre was actually there when my uncle and the family found the first shards on the beach, and that was the beginning of what you see here today.
Extraordinary pieces that they have managed to collect over the years, and I think what's quite interesting is there is a progression in styles and designs, but they are predominantly from that period. Tell us a little bit about this particular bowl and the wonderful acquisition of that.
So that was one of the most special ones, and I think if I had to choose my favourite one here, I was going to say the Kendi, because Mum and Dad got very excited about finding that.
And they are so beautiful, those Kendis.
That's absolutely stunning. But then this one was a find that Dad bought remotely, so it had to be transported back home, and my young cousin of 11 or 12 years old was entrusted, perhaps foolishly, to carry it back as hand luggage on the plane. It was boxed beautifully, and I remember Mum and Dad telling us the story of watching him disembark the aircraft in Johannesburg, bouncing this box against his leg as he came down the staircase, and then being paranoid. But it all came out well.
There's been a wonderful correspondence between your parents and Anita Gray, which my colleague Sophie-Louise has been using for a lot of the research. And there's this sweet relationship between your mother and Anita Gray. Beautifully handwritten letters.
It's just been amazing because the letters have given a real sense of the passion and the love and the gradual understanding of what blue and white porcelain represent. And of course, most of these are one lead periods, so 1573 and 1620, as you know, and then also gradually going into a bit of a later period. Was there ever a moment where your parents decided that they were looking at acquiring later pieces, or was that just a gradual addition? Because, as you've mentioned, Anita Gray was obviously a great friend and she was so helpful with all the collecting and advising. But there are pieces that were bought in Johannesburg at the old Sotheby's Park Bonnet in 1982, which is quite a long time ago. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think what happened was that the one lead period was the specific interest that Dad was interested in, and I think that linked directly to the shipwreck. So that's where the focus was. But then as they started seeing pieces in South Africa, there was a limited number, so they obviously got interested in it. And there's another lovely story of Mum. I think she was in Sandton City at one point, where she walked past an interior design shop who was using a blue and white, turned out to be Kraak plate as part of their display. Didn't have a clue what it was, but Mum, having had the experience of this, recognized it, called Dad, and stood guard while Dad raced in from the office. So it was great. So I think that really is how the collection expanded, because you were limited in what you could actually find in South Africa, and I think, you know, whatever came up, they grabbed.
Because they seem to have attended auctions. We've noticed that there's one or two pieces from a collection that was sold in Durban in 1984.
I think 1984, the Rajab collection. Yeah.
And so that was quite interesting for us because we were able to track down those catalogues which you kindly gave us. And those are slightly later pieces than these that we're looking at. And the collection seems to have evolved right through to the end of the 19th century, more or less, with one or two which we don't have here, one or two very pretty cups.
But I think what's interesting from a cataloguing point of view certainly was you had these wonderful big plates. You've got the stunning bowl, which is from Jing de Zen. You've got the betel box, which is also quite a special piece. You don't often see these at all in South Africa, certainly. But then there was this Dutch blue and white plate, and that was really amazing because you could actually take the pieces and compare them. And I think for me, certainly not knowing your parents at all, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but it really showed how they thought about putting this all together and the care that was taken in all of these pieces.
It was fantastic, and I remember Dad having some cabinets made specifically out of stinkwood and yellowwood, I think, with beveled glass and all the rest to display them in. So it was very much a part of it, and my brother Andre and I, we grew up with this in the house. Sadly, the sort of passion and interest didn't pass on to the youngsters, and you know, this is something so special that you really have to have the in-depth passion for it, and I really look forward to seeing you know, somebody else really loving it for another 30 years as Mum and Dad did.
Strauss and Company are going to be auctioning these wonderful pieces on the 11th of April here in Cape Town, and I'm just hoping that we will find clients who love these objects as much as your parents did and yourself.
No, well, thank you very much, and you know, for us that's really important, that they find a home that is loving or is exposed to more and more people to enjoy it as well. It's a very particular thing to want to collect, and I think, you know, someone with that kind of passion that Mum and Dad had for this would be lovely.